Hello, and thank you for joining us once again. Day 25, a quarter of a century.
Century.
Well, a century is 100, so 25 is a quarter of that.
Oh, that's very optimistic. Yes, day 20, long time ago. Hello.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's been going on all that long, but apparently it has. So that's about 3.5 weeks now since we entered lockdown, and still some more weeks to go. I've got a theory.
Okay.
I think from day one, the powers that be up there on those, is it podia, the plural podiums, those guys who do that press conference every day, had a pretty good idea that we'd be probably locked down for 2 or 3 months. But they didn't want any sort of rioting or smashing of windows or gnashing of teeth or wailing and that kind of thing. So they released the information a bit at a time. So my money, if we're putting a sweepstake on this, I'm going to put a fiver on the lockdown being lifted sometime in June.
Yep. I have updated our diary of all the stuff because we've been never so busy. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of interaction that we normally don't have because we use most of the time traveling if we're going to visit people. And now we do everything online. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know,
June.
Thank you so much for joining us in our living room today. It's wonderful to have your company. I'm the number geek, and I have to tell you that I've been crunching these numbers again every day since this pandemic began, and well, the good news is that 5 of the last 7 days the numbers have gone down, and the other news is that today's numbers for mortality, that is, from this pandemic, because that's the most accurate figure we have. Hello, thank you for joining us. The most reliable figure that I have for this is actually lower than it was of Wednesday of last week. So that's what, 10 days ago. And if we'd all been wandering around the street and mingling and going to barbecues and stuff, which we haven't been obviously, then it was doubling every 3 days. So the curve is starting to flatten, and the next way, unlike that song, the only way is up, the only way now is down, and we're going to push that down and squish it away. Do you like that t-shirt? It's got a certain something to it. I was watching this guy last night on a video called, his name is Toby Jepson. He was with a rock band in the 1990s who they supported Bon Jovi and all sorts of people, and Van Halen gave them a load of stuff that was left over after a tour and so on and so forth. And there he is playing a lot of tunes in his kitchen, which I thought they were so nice. They were so
Yeah,
nice.
they also, the wife cooperating and everything else, switching the camera on and off. It was so
She was kind of going right up to the camera
awesome.
and pushing it on and pushing it off at the end and printing out all the emails and reading it to him. Being a rocker, of course, he was hiding his glasses while he played the songs because he doesn't need it there. But then when the emails came in, on came the glasses with sort of middle-aged rockerdom. And that's something we all try to avoid and be in denial about. Anyways, we have a whole load of good news to share with you this evening. Starting with this, really, here in the UK, we have developed a coronavirus task force to develop the vaccine quickly. At a pace, it says, and that's going to be a good thing. So manufacturers have been drafted in, our top scientists have been drafted in, and there's a single goal, just to get a vaccine out there as quickly as possible. There have been a whole raft of vaccine research projects which have been green lighted. There's a total of £15 million in the coffer to try and fund that and to go towards supporting this, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And that's on top of 6 projects last month, and a £250 million pledge already in place to CEPI, which is the international body researching researching a vaccine. So it's really all hands on deck, all hands to the pumps, and full steam ahead, to mix up all those metaphors and stuff. But I take this as very, very, very encouraging news as we push forward with this. And the best of British, they say, don't they? But you know, we're pushing it forward and pushing all the buttons. And Sir Patrick Vallance and Jonathan Van Tam, who are the government's top scientific advisors, are going to be heading up this task force, and presumably that we will get reports coming back the whole time of the kind of developments and so forth. And in terms of, you know, what this virus is costing the country, in terms of stretching the health service to the limits, in terms of people's mortality, a lot of people who've lost their lives far too soon now, and in terms of the economy. I mean, you know, it costs a lot of money to close the country down for 3 months, and even at the height of this credit crunch crisis that was really painted as in terrible terms as being the epitome of doom and gloom. Well, the GDP only fell 2%. Here we're predicting a fall of 35%, which is a real biggie, actually, if you think about it. So anyway, there are some targets and things that have been rolled out as well, and we've just heard that there's a target now that there will be. Hello, Paul. Very nice to have you on board with us this evening. I hope things are good in Colchester. Now, the great news today, the big takeaway of, if I had to condense the whole thing down into 2 seconds, it would be that there is a target now. Not the government is saying this, the scientists are saying this. We will have 1 million vaccines against this virus by September 2020. Isn't that fantastic? And we can all go out and have a great big party in the park. It won't be too late for a barbecue. Look at that face lighting up there.
I will just wait and see.
So that is absolutely fabulous news, and that's some scientists at that other place, because as you know, we're based in Cambridge here. Hello, John. Thank you for joining us this evening on our lockdown special. Great news today is that it has been announced by scientists at the University of Oxford, who are nearly as good as the ones here in Cambridge, but you know, they might have picked up. You know, we're always beating them in the boat race, but they might just have the slight edge over us here with this, assuming they can deliver that there will be 1 million doses of a coronavirus vaccine for this new COVID-19 disease by September of this year, which is some awesomely brilliant, amazing, and wonderful. And the first patients are taking part in trials next week. But obviously, it's subject to it being effective and subject to it being safe, as would be the case, I guess, with any kind of vaccine trial, you know. But this would make a huge development. There are 80 groups around the world leading the fight for a vaccine at the moment. Some countries have several research projects on the go simultaneously, which is good. So I think all in all, we're going to lock this one. Why did Oxford get in there so quickly? Because they've been working towards being able to cope. Hello, Michael. It's very good to have your company this evening. So we're just talking about Oxford Uni. The other place have made the announcement that they are working on a vaccine which they hope will obviously be effective and work. And if it is, they hope that there will be 1 million doses of this vaccine available by this September. And the deal is that they've been working on something quite similar. It's a genetically engineered chimpanzee virus, which has been kind of neutralized, and so it's no longer potent. And they've combined this with bits of the new coronavirus, and they're hoping that it will latch onto those bits of that new virus and neutralize it, which would be absolutely outstandingly brilliant. There's a lady called Professor Sarah Gilbert who's heading up the research. We talked about her earlier in the week, and she is 80% sure that this will work. So the odds are very much in our favour there. So it's, you know, I'm 80% sure that if I go down the street, I will croak it today. So we don't want that. We want the virus that will make me big and strong and able to venture out somewhere other than the back garden, because when you've done 80 laps of our garden, it's not very exciting. Hello, Alex. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have terrific news. And hello, Maria. Thank you very much for your company tonight. The terrific news that we have this evening is that the University of Oxford has announced that there is a high likelihood of there being 1 million doses of an effective vaccine against this nasty lurgy, not at some unforeseen, unknown future vague point, but by September of this year, which would be ambitious, but not impossible.
I think my money is in September, October, hopefully.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Though it's cool, and you know, their optimism is such that they're putting the plans in place to manufacture it, to mass produce this vaccine at the same time as testing it. So that means that these processes that normally are not run concurrently. Normally you test it on your rats, and then you test it on your people, and then you contact some factories and things. All of that's happening at once, which may give us a chance to speed things up a bit, which would be absolutely brilliantly awesome. And so the researchers should know in the next couple of months whether this vaccine works, and then it's full steam ahead, and try to make things work. And so there has been, well, now here's an interesting angle on this, actually, because as the lockdown is effective, fewer and fewer people get this. So they have been speculating as to whether it would be safe to deliberately infect people to get the answers faster as to whether or not the vaccine works. I'm not volunteering for that trial, man. Forget that one. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Okay. But you know, there are no guarantees in any project like this. But it's making all the right noises, and it's sounding very positive, and it's a British invention, which has got to be kind of fantastic. Now, the government are backtracking on something rather naughty that they did a while ago. They disbanded all the teams that were going to trace contacts of people with the virus, which is about as dumb as it gets, really, because once you get this under control in lockdown, once you get the number of infected cases down, we then need to make sure that the few cases that there are, we trace the contacts, everybody they've been in touch with, tell them to self-isolate at home, or if there are meds or vaccines that we can give them those things, and that's the way to really kind of stay on top of it. And I think it was partly during the time when the government had this idiotic policy of herd immunisation, which was very sensibly dropped. They did a very hasty U-turn over the course of about 3 days. But during the course of that, this team for contact tracing was disbanding. They're putting it back together again. They realised that when we come out of lockdown, those guys will be right at the forefront of our defence against this nasty thing, which is absolutely terrifically gratifying, don't you think?
Yes, I think so. But the testing, I don't know, when are they going to start really doing massively testing? I think they've started, but they're very in few pockets amongst the population.
They've tested about 4.5 people so far, so it's disgraceful. They've tested about as many people as South Korea would have tested in about 3 or 4 days. They've tested since the outbreak of the epidemic, some considerable number of weeks ago. So it's an absolute disgrace. It's a shambles. And they need to get their act together, and they need to make more masks and surgical gowns. And really, they don't have to be designer labels. There are lots and lots and lots of textile factories where the workers would be eager for the work. So it's time to break down the old boy network and the cartels and everything, and get everybody working on this full time, because the whole economy depends on this. Hello, Rodney. Very nice to see you for the second time today. How's things, sir? So yeah, today's good news that Oxford Uni say there'll be with a bit of luck, they say there's an 80% chance of there being 1 million vaccines for COVID-19 available by September 2020, which is outstanding. And then there's some Captain Tom, and he did his 100 laps. And while we were talking about this last night, this 99-year-old retired army vet who wanted to go around the garden 100 times to raise what was it, £1,000
£1,000
for the
for
NHS. That was his target, so that would be £10 a lap. Well, he's got £18 million, so that's an awful lot of money per lap, and he's finished that now, and he had a guard of honour doing his last lap. What a wonderful, fantastic guy. You're never too old to make a difference, and I hope he gets a knighthood.
His birthday coming up, is that right? On the 30th of this month?
Yes, it is, and there are apparently there are ways to send him a birthday card at his local post office. So let's absolutely inundate him with that. Hello, Ree. Thank you for joining us today. I think it's your first time with Irma and myself on this thing where we invite you into our home and talk about stuff. And also hello, Darren and Clive. I think I said hello to Clive before. Now there's so much good news about this coronavirus, and one of the things is this: around the world, they tell you about all these numbers. They don't tell you, do they? It doesn't sell newspapers to tell you that more than 500,000 people have so far recovered from it. And I think that's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. There's a whole list of numbers we've got here, courtesy of the Guardian newspaper. And in the cases that were worst affected, the numbers are starting to fall. We've been pretty badly hit here in the UK, but those numbers are falling. And 5 out of the last 7 days have seen a decline in the numbers. And today's number is less than it was 9 days ago, which is fabulous for a virus that was, prior to that, doubling every 3 days in the mortality numbers. It was doubling every 3 days, and now it's been steady effectively for 9 days. So it's exciting, isn't it? Really, it's exciting.
But nothing stays the same, so everything shall pass, and so is the virus, so long we keep indoors.
Yes. A small study from China reports that the majority of people who've got this infection are completely asymptomatic. They show no symptoms whatsoever, which is kind of great news. I remember that English patient zero, the guy who was in the ski lodge and came over and everything to here was reporting no symptoms, and although he infected everybody in his ski lodge. So this is all very positive stuff. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for joining us in our living room this evening. We're talking about a bunch of numbers, and here's another thing. In the time that it took COVID-19 to kill 120,000 people around the world, this is a big number, but in that same time frame, 36 million babies were born.
Wow.
So that it puts everything in perspective.
Yeah,
It puts everything in perspective. It's obviously a tragedy. Every single death is a tragedy. Let's not undermine that in any way, shape, or form. But the numbers are kind of stacking up very nicely, I guess, in our favour. A lot of the sort of divisions and a lot of the things we were worried about at the beginning of the year now pale into insignificance, really. And if the planet can go on working together and cooperating in the way that it has over the last few weeks, that would be a massive, massive result.
Yeah, that's right. More so now that after so many days being indoors and keeping to our families. I mean, we probably have had the opportunity to really reflect onto what we really need and what the planet needs as well. So with so many upheaval just before the COVID-19 crisis was to do with the planet and climate change and all this. So all that has come by default, which makes me think about the perception that we have as a humanity, as a humankind. It's just, I don't know, everything falls into place. So we got this virus now that has put us back indoors and to reflect upon what we really need and what we don't and what we can do without. So it's just an excellent time to really appreciate life as it is and enjoy every day with our beloved and with the work, with all just being creative.
So, and here's the thing, musicians have stepped up to the plate massively during this crisis. A lot of them online. I think, was it Kaiser Chiefs, where all 4 of them are in different places and they recorded a new track? I think it was them. I saw that today. And then here's a lady in a street of Victorian terraced houses playing a cello in her front garden to raise money for charity. And you can see from the safety of their own of their own gardens, many meters away from her, all the neighbours having a look. There's kids and all sorts, and that's nice.
I love cello, and fabulous.
Yeah, I'm jealous
amazing
now.
how we. So what are you going to be doing? Singing opera?
Well,
just outside the window. Hello.
Well, I wish I was living in that street. And here is a thing. I love these pictures, these interactive pictures that you get online, where you can slide a horizontal thing backwards and forwards to see, I don't know, the same street with a horse and cart or with a motor car or something. And this one shows you a beautifully clear river and a horrible polluted thing full of smog. And as a
Blue
result,
skies.
naturally, of the lockdown here. It doesn't say where it is, but that particular story in the Guardian newspaper, which is very cool. Yeah, there are. We saw this very funny video on YouTube or Facebook or whatever today about a lady appearing from the future and sending a message to her past self in January, and saying, do you want the good news or the bad news? And so past self says, what, the good news, yeah? And she goes, well, there are swans in the canals in Venice. And she's going, oh, tell me more. But then she's going, and then it becomes absolutely hysterically funny, because she's saying, well, you might want to join that gym quickly and take the vitamins and lots of other sort of wacky things. Walk up and down the street a couple of times and get a dog. And the past self is going, what? That was a very, very nicely put together piece, actually, which
It completely took us out of guard to every single one.
yeah, we'll have to try and find it afterwards, and then we can post it in the links.
Yes,
if we can
nice.
remember who posted it.
It's just a funny, hilarious way of looking and talking to yourself
It was
from
very
the
nice.
future.
It was very nice. Ben, thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to our living room, where we're chatting about this, that, and the other.
With coffee.
Absolutely so, absolutely so. No question about that at all. We're looking at the ups and the positive things about that have been going on in the UK, mostly in the UK, but also elsewhere during the lockdown. There's in a place called Mutt Hill. And I'm not quite sure where that is.
What is that?
It's somewhere in the UK, because they've got one of the red phone boxes that was designed by Sir Gilbert Scott, and they've turned it into a community food bank. Where people are bringing all their pastas and things and leaving them there. I don't see any loo paper. But then again, you can't eat that. So strictly speaking, it doesn't belong in a food bank. People could just come along and those who from each according to their ability to each according to their need, which I think is kind of quite nice in this sense.
I'm still puzzled about so much buying blue paper. It's just, don't know why.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then there's a weather forecaster in one of the regional news centres here in the UK, who went viral because all these guys are at home with a bit of time on their hands, a bit like us, which is why we're here, I guess, today. And this newsreader who's called Owen Wynne Evans, and he's the weather reporter on BBC Northwest. And he put a clip on Twitter of him finishing his presenting slot and then dashing home to play the outro music of the weather forecast on his drum kit, and that's quite nice. He's had more than 1 million views. So we'll have to think of, if you've got any ideas of something we can do to get 1 million views on Twitter, then do let us know, and we're up for it, whatever it takes. He's quite a young fella, but yeah, but very, very nice little story in the papers there. There he is. The weather reporters in my day were quite elderly gentlemen, but this fellow's quite young and trendy, and he looks the kind of fellow who might play the drums at your wedding or something, because he's looking very dapper in his outfit there, and so he's the sort of person you'd expect to see. At some kind of country event. If you are from London or you've been in London, you probably saw the Harry Potter themed buses that used to take people from central London. I've seen them around the King's Cross area and sort of other people. They used to take them to on a studio tour of the Harry Potter lot, and I think it's at Elstree, is it? But anyways, they've been repurposed during this current emergency thing, and they've turned into free transport for NHS staff, which is again a very, very nice gesture. Hello, Corinna. Hope things are good with you this evening. We're looking at the upside to the lockdown and all the very charming and nice little stories that make you just proud to be British and proud to be a part of all these wonderful things that are kind of like going on. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So they asked for comment from some guy about using the Harry Potter buses to transport NHS staff, and he said, and I quote, "It's a wizard idea." Oh dear, oh dear, 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 dear. Leave the jokes to me, fella. Okay, so Mutt Hill is in Scotland. It's in Perth and Kinross, and 675 people live there. And they've set up a take what you need service in an old abandoned phone box. Many of those phone boxes have been turned into listed buildings by the local council.
Oh, really?
So they can't be taken away. Oh yeah,
That's
just about all the red ones that you see left have been listed by the councils because they are a part of our way of life here. And the rest of them got sold to America or something, where they're being used as shower cubicles or something, or in people's gardens. Not shower cubicles in people's gardens, but maybe a miniature golf range in the garden and a shower cubicle if you happen to have one indoors. But and they've even considered keeping this open after the lockdown finishes to help people kind of recovering. But it's so nice, and the local pub donated some Easter eggs and no some chocolate Easter lollies for children into this phone box.
Awesome.
Which is super wonderfully lovely. And then there was a flour mill in Dorset, which well, Thomas Hardy used to visit it back in the day, and it was a kind of museum. But to crank things up at a time of shortages and so far, they've actually brought it back into use. And because it's not nuclear power, it doesn't have electric motors and that kind of thing, all you do is you open the sluice gates and it works, which I think is wonderful news. And it's delightful to see old tech. The old tech will soldier on for centuries, long after the newfangled stuff has ground to a halt. They were due to open to visitors this flour mill, and so they bought some real grain to sort of demonstrate on the visitors, so they can to demonstrate to the visitors. We don't put any of the visitors in between the stone wheels. No. And so they now, given that it's very unlikely they'll have any visitors, and there's been a mill in that place since Saxon times.
Oh, wow.
Thomas Hardy was 21 months in the village, and he worked on his novel The Return of the Native there. And they used to go with his first wife Emma. He used to regularly go on walks to Sturminster Newton Mill, which is lovely stuff. And then there's I think we spoke about it, didn't we? There was a guy who was a cyclist. And he was doing a fundraising challenge where he was cyclist, the former Tour de France champion Geraint Thomas was doing a 36-hour ride in his garage in Cardiff as a fundraiser for the NHS. And he was tweeting it and doing details of his ride on screens and communicating them. So it's a kind of virtual Tour de France, but all from the safety of his garage. Nice, isn't it nice? There's some very nice stories here. There's an in-depth story in one of the papers today about Boris Johnson's kind of illness and the fact that he wasn't very well, contrasting with the fact that the press were being told, oh, it's just a little thing, but on the one hand, brave, but on the other hand, it's nice to know what's going on. It's nice not to have spin going on at a very critical time for our nation, and to be told the truth, I think.
Yes.
Good evening, Paul. Thank you for joining us on our on tonight's lockdown special. So you may have missed something that we mentioned earlier, that around the world now, more than 500,000 people have actually recovered from this virus.
That's the good
which
news.
is absolutely wonderful. That's far more than the numbers of people who
And how many
have
babies?
died. And 36 million babies who never had it have been born. So yeah.
That's fabulous news. We're strong as a race.
So that's for every survivor from coronavirus, 72 babies. I just did that in my head.
Wow.
I know.
Still works.
That's quite a thing. But yeah, which is
Yeah, and we just talking about the solidarity that we have all come across. I mean, so many ways of and ideas of raising money for the NHS and for the soldiers out there, which is fabulous, I think.
Oh yes, oh yes.
We all
It's
think.
very gratifying
Yes,
to
super,
see that
super.
kind of thing coming on,
Yeah.
and to see everybody stepping forward, and to see all of us as a nation, as a globe, as a planet, pulling together.
Mm-hmm.
There are no nations, there are no boundaries right now. This is something that affects us all.
Life, like we've been saying, is never ever going to be the same again, ever, 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 which is a good thing. Because we were so bored with our previous life. We were moaning of traveling, traffic, children, cooking, this, that, and the other. And now that we have time to be at home, working from home, or if you're follow, and well, at least you have time to do those things that you didn't have time and you moan about. I did. I used to, at one point, I was traveling to Northampton every day, and it would take me hour and a half to get there, and it was just ridiculous. So now I assume the majority of us are at home and rethinking our ways of living, rethinking our budgets, getting rid of the old stuff, and preparing to face the new us in the new era. Because for me, it's a new decade, 2020, and for everybody, it's a new decade, definitely. So it's a time to reflect and just to move forward, to go beyond the today and the old stuff. All this consumerism just going doolally. Now we need to buy quality, we need to buy stuff that's going to nourish us, that we need to do activities. I'm planning to do activities that's going to nourish us as a couple, me as in my physical way of being, and yes, I'm not going to be born again. So let's make the best of it. What we need, get it, so long as it's good, and what you don't need, just don't get it, and save your money.
Now,
that's my mantra.
And very wise it is too, and I think it's something we should all take note of. I read a story earlier, which I can't find now. It's not always the way, but it was they were asking people about, and this was here in the UK, about how many people thought that life would be permanently different or the same. I'm just having a quick look to see if I can.
It would be foolish to expect to be the same. I mean, no, we are creatures of change. We cannot just stand still. Nothing stands still. Life definitely certainly doesn't. So we need to move on.
Yes,
different.
Very
Stronger.
much so. Very much so. Basically, the upshot of this thing was that only 9% of people, I'll try and find it and talk about it a bit more tomorrow, but only 9% of the people interviewed said that life would return to the way it was. Hello, a very good hello to my very good friend, Rocker Kev. Look, I'm specially dressed up for you today, so with my ACDC back
And
in
it's
black
not Tuesday.
t-shirt, and it's not even Tuesday.
It's Friday.
But it's Rockin' Friday.
Yes.
And great to have your company this evening. And yeah, so only 9% of people polled. We'll have to find this article tomorrow. But only 9% of the people polled thought that the life would return to being exactly the way it was when lockdown is over, which is probably going to be in June. Let's be quite clear about
Yes.
this. And you heard it first here. These will be good changes. People like all the fresh air now. People like not having to commute to work. They like the flexibility to work from home. There are many changes that we're making in our lives. Companies like not having to pay the rent for the great big office. So there are lots of changes that will be embraced, I think, by employers, by employees, by people as a whole, which will make all our lives better. Because this idea of getting on the locomotive city and going to work is a bit old hat. It's a bit old hat. It doesn't really work in today's super connected world where computers link us all as they are doing this evening for this little fireside chat from us. And so I think that's a terrific that's a terrific sentiment.
It's a world of opportunities, if we really take it and if we really embrace it and say, yes, this is my time to redesign my life. How am I going to do it? How would I like to live going forward or after this? What the best chance? If you're working from home, you just prove yourself that you're worth it, and to keep and to move forward, and it's just part of your CV, part of you, who you are. It's just an amazing opportunity the way I look at it. We've been doing new things, being creative. We are busier than ever, creating, putting stuff together that is going to feel feed our souls, and hopefully we'll be able to share it with people that we care the most, which is our fellow humans.
We absolutely, totally will, and you know, you guys, because you've been with us from day one on this. We'll tell you first about what's going on. Now, my very, very good friend Rocker Kev says he's actually got a Dirty Deeds t-shirt on upstairs. So kind of so it's AC/DC night. Okay. Sometimes on my rock show that I do on Tuesday nights, I go for tonight. We're going to go from AC to ZZ using the American pronunciation, because if you said ZZ, it wouldn't work.
Yep.
So so kind of there is a general consensus, I think, that things are going to be different.
Yes.
And it's these are good. I think it's these would be good changes. I think these would be good changes, and bad things sometimes lead to good changes, and because we as human beings respond in positive ways. We don't let it get us down.
No, no. I think if we are to use the power of attraction, of your thought, of what you really want to achieve, it will come your way.
Yeah.
Whatever you put out, you will get back.
Very much so. Very much
10
so.
times fold sometimes.
And now here's a fella called Ryan Broderick, who is a news reporter on the website BuzzFeed. That's one of the kind of trendy ones for geeks that I look at sometimes. He's talking about the way that big events have changed our lives in the past. So he talks about his grandma, and she was born in 1928 apparently, and she spent the first 10 years of her life living through the Great Depression in the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, and the last 5 years of her life, probably as a result, hoarding food at home until it rotted in her fridge. And the trauma, of her early years never left her. And I think what that means, in a positive sense, is that when we come out of our homes, we're not in any way, we can't imagine the stress that some of our ancestors faced in the past when there were sort of big things besieged in their city by I don't know, Visigoths or something, or
Wow.
this kind of thing. Captain Tom, newsflash, Captain Tom has now, last night he raised an extra $1 million while we were kind of on the air doing this, and my good friend Kevin tells me that he has now exceeded £20 million in donations, and the donations are still coming in from
That
this
was up to
very
747. Oh wow.
this very
This evening. So
£20 million and 65 pence. So it raised
4,000
so far, which is absolutely
Wow.
staggeringly awesome. That was the news as of just before we came on tonight, and like wow, absolutely.
What a fabulous achievement.
Wow. And so it's a superb result, and it gives us some great confidence in everything, and it's wonderful. It's enough
Thank you, Kev.
to.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely. I
brilliant.
normally talk a lot, but I'm almost lost for words.
Yes, it's just very humble. It makes you feel that doesn't matter what age you are, so long you are good at heart and pure of heart, and you doing your beautiful life. You say, hang on a second, I'm still breathing. It's another day. I just wonder what kind of thought he had that day in which he decided to say, okay, I'm going to do this one for £1,000. I'm going to raise £1,000, which is going to be my little thing to do for the NHS. And now it's 20 million. That tells you the power of his thought is just amazing. The way he has given himself with his whole heart, body and soul to this. and we can all see it as a human. He's 99 years old. He's going to be 100 on the 30th of this month. If you want to send him a card, I think the post office is ready to handle all this massive workload, I assume. But it's just, it doesn't matter how old or how young, if you want to do something and you're still here, you're still alive, make it your purpose to make a difference.
Every day for the rest of your life, wake up in the morning and see the opportunities. See a blank sheet of paper in front of you and fill it up with goodness.
You're very humble, yeah.
So that's what we need to do, and it starts, the future starts now. So
what's going to be your story at the end? So it's time for you to design it.
It's the end. Oh
at
my.
the end.
It's the end of the world as we know it. No, it isn't. Okay, just to be clear, but that's a nice song. Remember, I'm a DJ. There are lots of there's lots of speculation coming out of the back of this current pandemic. Will China become the new world superpower off the back of this? Because you know, if America's crippled, and Russia's certainly, it has emerged in the last few days that Russia's being hit quite hard by this, although it wasn't much in the news. So
Wow.
Does that leave the door open for China? Perhaps there would be an irony in that.
Well, they've been doing a lot of investment all around the world, but buying first in little small countries, in buying companies that are on trouble, and then bringing them up to scratch, and more acquired very silently. We don't realize. So it might be the case that they are becoming the super country power.
Yes, carpe diem, says Kevin. Absolutely, seize the day.
Yes, definitely.
And I do think that we have to do that. And you see, there are changes now that are happening, which might have taken a very long time otherwise. So, and maybe these changes are happening for the wrong reasons. But for example, your supermarkets, who are big multi-billion pound companies, have seen empty shelves. They've seen their supply chains disrupted. And that, you know, the job of the supermarket is basically to keep those shelves emptying and refilling the whole time. It's how they make their money. It's why straight after Easter, the Easter eggs all get sold off for a penny, because they need to put more stock on there that will shift faster. They know they could probably go on until July and get rid of most of them in the end, you know, by just discounting them by 10%. But that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. Every square centimetre of that supermarket has to be continually churning and donating revenue. Now, if your supply chain is messed up, that interferes with your ability to do that. So it might be cost effective to source all your produce locally, and it would be much easier, therefore, to get it into the stores. Hello, Anita. Hope your evening is going well. So it could happen that supermarkets either absorb the extra cost or pass this on, but for slightly more cost, we have a more reliable supply chain. And the advantage to that is that we are not ruining the planet so much. We're not flying 6 times around the world to get some apples from some far off place. We could actually grow a mile from the store.
Yeah, we have hydroponics now, which means we can grow indoors anything we want in terms of vegetables, that is, and fruit and all sorts. And it's a clean environment. It's the same stuff, less pollution. Let's just hope that we turn into local consumers rather than worldwide consumers.
Yeah. The BBC suggests 4 possible outcomes following on from coronavirus for our economy, and it says a descent into barbarism. I'm not particularly keen of that with all the pillaging and stuff that entails. No, we're not. I mean, we're not taking a vote on this, but you know, if you have a preference, do tell us. So, barbarism. Oh, and hello, Colin. Hope you and Claudia are well this evening. We saw Claudia making her own mask, didn't we?
Yes.
Today, which she posted on Facebook, and it looked very impressive. No. And we're going to put in an order for 5,000 for us.
Private.
Sorry.
It was private.
oh, I'm so sorry. Well, we're not going to put it. It was a private post. I do apologise. We didn't see anything. We didn't see anything.
No,
Nobody did
no.
anything. And oops. Anyways, we're talking
But I
about.
think it's a good idea. I'm going to make my own. I'm going to get
Yeah,
the
we're going to
sewing
make our
machine.
own, and we're going to make 5,000 with our sewing machine right here,
No.
and give them away at the
Well.
front gate. No,
Yes.
that's what we'll do. Anyways, I'm coming back to this. 4 possible outcomes for the UK. For our future. So we've just covered, just as Colin was arriving, barbarism. So there's lots of pillaging and looting and marauding and barbarianising and probably power cuts and all that sort of stuff and pushing people in front of you in the supermarket queues and all that. We don't really want that.
Well, I think if we had not followed the guidelines of keeping ourselves indoors and having all this civilized communication between government and ourselves to keep it indoors, keep everybody safe, there's a reason behind. The reason is the curve. We need to flatten that curve. We need to really stop this virus on its tracks, and that's the only way. Had we not done that, then yes, we could perhaps have pockets of people that are not reasoning with why, with the whys
Yeah.
of this, and then you develop this kind of uprisings in pocket and selection. So hopefully we won't get to those things. So long
Yeah.
we keep indoors, so long we keep civilized, so long we pass the information to everybody as to this is something that we need to do in order to keep us safe.
Hey, hello, Jake. Good to see you this evening. Thank you for joining us. Not for the first time. So yeah, we're talking about the 4 possible outcomes for the UK when we come out of lockdown, kind of medium to long term. Okay, not 3 days afterwards. Number 1 being a descent into barbarism. But the news we've seen to that really is the toilet roll hoarders who chastise them and let's out them all on social media and post photos of them in their kitchens surrounded by loo rolls.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a loo roll manufacturer who just put something on kind of news and saying that no problem, don't worry about it, we got plenty of it.
Oh, yeah. Now, a robust state capitalism, that's probably what the government is pushing for at the moment, which may work, provided their pockets are deep enough and provided they don't lose their nerve. That's a possibility. Or run out of the old green folding stuff. Although with QE, they can always make some more. A radical state socialism. Well, he lost in December, didn't he? So that's probably possibly less of a possibility now than it might have been.
Oh my God, yes.
Although Sakir is getting a lot of airtime and seems a much more reasonable fellow. We shall see. And then possibility 4, and these are the BBC's suggestions, not mine. A transformation into a big society built on mutual aid. Is that a bit utopian, or do you think we could achieve that?
We can achieve that.
It's a thought. And you see, everybody's suffering at the moment. I was thinking about this today on the way back from the supermarket. Everybody's suffering this crisis except for the lenders. The lenders are not suffering at all because we get a 3-month holiday from that loan and it's added on to the end.
Yeah.
And
just-
all the obligations
it's the
sort of
first.
continue at a point where other people are kind of struggling because they've got no more customers. They've had to give everybody refunds. They're trying to continue to pay their staff, blah, 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 blah. But for the financial sector, it doesn't seem to affect them at all. And that's something perhaps as well that as a society we should really take a close look at moving forward. I think that's a big takeaway there. We're going to get short, sharp shocks, and everything is pretty much fine-tuned. There was a model which I think was designed by some Harvard mathematical bods to predict the behaviours of the stock markets and so forth, and that was in 2005 or something, and everything was coasting along. But it didn't. If it went over there or below there, the scientific model doesn't work. But that hasn't happened for ages. So that was another thing that happened during the meltdown of 2007. That broke, and all the automatic trading systems went up in smoke and couldn't function properly anymore. So we need to be able to prepare as a society for things which are not the run-of-the-mill Monday to Friday, 51.5 weeks out of the activities, but to prepare for those one-offs.
Yeah. We need to get rid of the debt as well. Can I just share a little drop of joy? Is little drops of joy. So life itself is a proper binge.
It most certainly is.
Let's binge in life.
It is, and we should, because we've got our however many days it is, quite a lot of them, but not an infinite number. You know, when I was Jake's age, I thought the horizon was a long, long way away, and all the possibilities were infinite. And now I'm a lot closer to that horizon, and I'm not happy about it. So roll it back if at all possible. And
25 days, huh? So far.
well,
So good.
well, yeah, exactly. So you know, things could be, you know, a
A
lot
lot
worse.
worse.
To
Definitely.
absolutely,
It's Friday, hey?
no question about it. And spring is beautiful, even if you have to look at it from the window. We've got a robin who has taken ownership of the garden in our absence, in
And a
absentia,
blackbird.
and a blackbird as well. And so they're battling it out. Who's going to win?
No, they live. They have it together. Yeah.
Okay,
The only thing
well,
is that the robin is just a little bit. If you are outdoors gardening,
He's a
he just
cheeky
comes to
fella.
see. Oh, he's a lovely. He always comes and asks for food. So we need to make sure that we have food for the robin.
If I was a bird, I think I would be a robin.
Yeah. Okay.
There's every possibility. But watch the magpies, because they're the bad guys, aren't they, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So they say.
Well, yeah. So kind of, you know, stuff's going on. And now Captain Tom has inspired a 90-year-old lady called Margaret Payne. And she is climbing Ben Nevis on her staircase, because we had Kevin told us about a guy who was climbing Everest on his staircase. But this lady is 90 years old, and she's going up and down the stairs with her stick, and a very nice home she's got too. She's beaten her target was to raise £10,000 for the NHS and for a hospice. And she's going to make 282 trips up and down the stairs, which is more than I do in a year. But God bless her.
Yeah.
And lovely lady, and which is nice. Denmark is starting to come out of lockdown. So, you know, the guys who started earlier, actually, they have a shorter, not only they come out of Corona earlier, they're out of lockdown, but their lockdown is shorter than ours, because there weren't as many cases when they locked it down, because they were pretty sensible, and they watched the news and they saw what was happening in Italy, and they took decisive action, which was quite nice. So yeah, they have started to reopen schools and daycare centres in Denmark, and they're going to allow a few small businesses like hairdressers, kind of quite useful, and driving schools to reopen, which is very nice.
Yes, I think the different sectors open at different times. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's you need to roll out the whole economy again in little drops.
Yes. Amazon are getting involved in this, not just making money out of all the people sitting at home having home deliveries, but they're going to participate in testing kits, which will be delivered by Amazon. I don't know whether it'll be by the drones or whatever, or by a driver, but they'll drop it off. You'll do the old whatever it is, swabbing or whatever, and give it back to them an hour later, and they'll go away and test it. So I think that's quite nice, and that has been confirmed. It hasn't been confirmed yet by the Department of Health, so it's just a rumour in today's Daily Telegraph. But it would be nice if it was true.
Yes,
I think
it would be definitely. So.
Yeah. And more than 100 hotels and guest houses here in the UK have offered NHS NHS staff the chance to win a free stay when the pandemic is over, which I think is a very nice way of saying thank you, isn't it, really? And it doesn't, this doesn't cost, because they're rooms that would otherwise be empty, I guess.
Oh, what can you tell me about this one, David? It says people do not leave nowadays. They get about 10% out of life.
Yeah, because we're all driven by targets nowadays. And when I was a lad, back in the good days, but when my dad was around, you know, if you saved your money prudently, you could buy your own house, a house like the one we're in now, probably by saving up for a year or two, and you could buy it for cash. When I came into the game, you could certainly save up the money to buy a house like this in 5 years. Now it would take about a zillion years. So you know, you're constantly now, just to get a few old bricks, you know, on a bit of land, it's not a huge thing here. You're locked into the system for 40 years, slaving your guts out, which is insane.
Yeah. So this is a good thing that we are going through this, and We need to grasp this opportunity that we are given by nature, because that's what happens. We got a virus that we don't know what to do with it, and because our body doesn't recognize it, therefore it kills us.
Some of us.
Yeah, some of us. But now is a time that really to reflect upon what has been happening in the past. What can we do to change, and what do we really need to get on with our lives and to live the now and use it to prepare a good future for ourselves, for our family, for humanity. Learn a huge experience. Just turn the negatives of this pandemic into positives by applying it in your life.
Yes, absolutely on the same page with you. 100%.
Excellent.
Very
Oh my
wise
God,
words.
what is that?
Well, now, what do you call, without cheating, that's a load of donkeys, but is it a bunch of donkeys, a herd of donkeys, what
Herd of
might that
donkeys.
be? No? This is one of these things that's got a specialist word. You know, I didn't
Donkey
know
donuts.
it. I didn't know it. It's a dunking of
donuts.
donuts. Yeah, a donut of donkeys. But you know, so it's a word I didn't know until about 12 seconds ago. But it's a drove of donkeys. Apparently, there are all these crazy words, and I don't know what they are for collections of animals. You know, a scallop of I don't know, sheep or something, which is not true, but it's one I just made up. But you know, they all have. Why can't it just be a flock? It's a drove of donkeys. They're going for a walk in the town of. Now, how would you pronounce that? Because it's going to be. It doesn't pronounce like it's spelled.
It's French, isn't it? Beaulieu.
It's Bewley. In the English,
Bewley,
the French
Hampshire.
pronunciation would probably be
Bewley,
Beaulieu.
Hampshire.
Beaulieu. But because it's English and we always bastardise everything, it's
Could you
Bewley
speak French, huh?
in Hampshire. But I speak Franglish as well, which is what that would be. And so in the town of Bewley, which is in Hampshire, a whole load of donkeys going down the street because everybody's self-isolating and there's nobody to say to them, "Shoo, go home." And so they're just
I think it's a marvellous
hot to
spectacle.
trot.
Why would you shoo him away? No.
Well, exactly. Well, I wouldn't. I would invite them into my front garden and yoke them up with a, what do you call it, a plough, and then we could plant potatoes. Just a thought. Just a thought. We were going to finish today, weren't we, by talking about what it means to find your true self and to discover the inner you and to connect. Or is that a topic that we're going to do next week when you split off and do your separate hour?
I think it'll be next week, because just now we're about 56 minutes. But basically, what I've been saying, sometimes, for example, we get tempted for the good. We have two personas, my thinking. We have the good you and not the bad you precisely, but this is a hedonistic kind of you. So if we were to really communicate and place those two together, you would end up with a beautiful I, which is I, as in italics I, which would guide you, because if you have to communicate the bad you and the good you to become the I, and then you become in the kind of person that says, I can do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, because you have managed to control these two and just join into beautiful, beautiful oneness. But I think it's a bit more in-depth communication. Perhaps next week.
Absolutely. So just in case you missed the announcement yesterday, from next week, after this finishes, Ian was going to do, half an hour or something for us about mindset as a separate video.
Yeah.
Or whatever length of time she and you are comfortable with.
20 minutes,
but,
30 minutes.
Yeah, okay, deal. See, we're allowed to shake
Oh my God.
because we're self-isolating together. We just transferred 10 billion germs there. Now, and I got them back again. So now, to finish with, after talking about a gaggle of donkeys, what was that, a drove of donkeys, we've got some goats, a herd of goats, which have taken over a deserted town and are jumping on the windowsills and eating all the flowers in people's gardens and the hedges and all this kind of thing.
Wow.
It's near Llandudno in Wales, and 122 goats have descended
goats.
on the town, and they're cashmere goats. I thought cashmere was a song by Led Zeppelin, but you know what it is. But it's also a country, and it's also a type of goat.
Okay.
But you know, it's just my little joke.
Confusing.
Anyway, just my little joke. Not funny, as are none of the rest of them. But so the lack of people has drawn 122 goats down from the mountains, and everybody's indoors watching them, but nobody can go out to challenge them. My goodness, they are sort of like everywhere
Yeah.
on here, and like it's a town. It's a three-dimensional goat invasion because there are goats on top of these high walls, goats on the windowsills, goats on the street, and they're just, if it moves, they eat it. So that's another reason. Invasion of the killer goats. That's another reason why you.
No. I think it's beautiful. Nature is
It's lovely.
coming together as a one.
It's
Good.
absolutely lovely.
Embrace it. Embrace it.
It really is a terribly nice story there, and I think there was probably one more. So yeah. As a final thought before you do the final thought. This is the penultimate final thought. So quickly get that final thought together. We were talking about a drove of donkeys, a herd of goats, and Kevin tells me that the collective noun for butlers is a sneer of butlers, sir. So there we go. Particularly when they work for sort of rich oil magnates who don't have much in the way of culture.
Okay, a little bit of little drops of joy is enjoy the blessings of today, and the evils bear patiently, for this day only is ours. We are dead to yesterday and not born to tomorrow. Jeremy Taylor. So make the best of you now, and be ready for a wonderful and joyful tomorrow.
Thank you so much for your company this evening. We hope that you will be able to join us vaguely the same time, because we never quite managed to do this because by the time we've had supper and all that kind of thing, and by the time we've shushed all the goats off the fence, it's always a bit vague. But have a great day tomorrow. Stay safe, look after one another, and we will be honoured if you could join us again for a little fireside chat tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye.